Have you been missold a PPI? If so, call us now on 023i9 7060321 444 39776 444 897. Don't worry, we only take a 98% cut.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Fully Charged. Now, this episode is very specifically about this, the Tesla Powerwall 2. Now, I had this installed about 8 weeks ago, and the reason for the rather unusual opening for this episode was because that's how I paid for it. I didn't know I actually had a PPI. For those of you overseas, you won't know what that is at all, and you're very lucky. It's called a Personal Protection Insurance Scheme. It's a con, it's a rip-off. It was what British banks did. So it was a total rip-off. I was paying for it for 18 years, and I didn't know. I thought it was an interest payment on my bank. Anyway, I got a refund, which is very nice, and that's what paid for this. So it's kind of relevant. Batteries, let's be honest, are not terribly exciting to look at. You know, there's no moving parts, there's no little brass valve you can polish, there's no little cams and pistons going like that. It's just a box that goes very quietly. Anyway, this is all about the Tesla Powerwall.
3 months ago, a van arrived and some lovely chaps unloaded a big, heavy package.
Oh, that's white.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Inside was a shiny white slab. They did some drilling and bolting, some wiring and installing, and about 4 hours later it was ready to switch on.
Nice job, chaps. Very neat. Oh!
A few weeks before all this, I replaced my old 2.2 kilowatt solar array with a new 5.5 kilowatt array.
So, since I've had the Powerwall installed, you could say I've become a little bit obsessed with the app, the Tesla app. I've got to show you this because it is very cool. So, at the moment, the Powerwall is at 100%. It's charged up already because it's a sunny day, which is very nice. And that initial screen just shows you how much you've got in the battery. If I go to Power Flow, there we go. So I'm getting 3.9 kilowatts at the moment from the solar panels, now 2.2, it's gone down a bit. And I'm also charging the car. And there you can see it switching between all. So I'm charging the Tesla at the moment, but only on 3 kilowatts. So it's only on the 3-pin plug. It's not on the normal 7 kilowatt charger. So it's slowly charging. It's charging a few miles an hour. But what I know is I'm getting all this power just from solar, so for the rest of the day. So what I do is on a sunny day, as soon as it gets to 100%, I plug the car in. This will soon be taken over automatically by the Zappi charger, which I'm having fitted soon. Another program about that coming up in the near future. So the sun's gone in now and I'm only getting 0.7 of a kilowatt, as you can see there. But then you can see that the whole day, how the day is structured. So that is all 4 things: the house usage, the solar production, the battery usage, and usage from the mains. So if I turn off everything else, you'll see how much mains we haven't used. So 0.1 of a kilowatt hour from the mains, and then if I slide down, and we've given the grid 5.2 kilowatt hours, that's because I was out in the car and I didn't charge it until just now. But then you can see the house usage. So let's turn those 2 off. That is how much we've used in the house. So you can see these little spikes all the way through the day. That's boiling a kettle, that's a washing machine, that is making toast this morning. There was quite a big dip. That all came from the battery. None of that was from the grid, as you can see from the other one, from the grid usage. Then there was sort of general usage of computers, of lights that we're using to film. And then most recently, that is the car charging. And as you can see, there's quite a big spike when it first came on, and then it levels out. So I can see from this that we've used 7.2 kilowatt hours in the house. In fact, we haven't. The car's used about 2 of those already. So say around 5 kilowatt hours in the house. Now we can see what the solar has produced. It's produced so far 20.1 kilowatt hours today. And you can see from the bottom of that 28.4% has gone to the house, 45.8% has gone to the Powerwall, and 25.8% to the grid. Now, normally if I have a really good day and I'm working here and I'm in control of it, I can reduce the amount that goes out to the grid down to 4 or 5%, because I'm putting far more into the cars once the battery's full. So this is still obsessive over management from my point of view. You wouldn't want to do this every day. This is just because I'm really, very much into it. I'll now show the battery usage. So you can see what the battery's been doing today. There's these few spikes in the morning, which is when we were having breakfast early on in the morning. It was quite an interesting one very early in the morning, and I don't know what that is. What did I turn on at about 6 o'clock this morning?
The extractor fan on the shower.
That's because I had a shower. So you can see then the solar was charging the battery all this morning, and so when it's below the line, that is the battery's being filled, and when it goes above the line, that is the battery delivering. So we've only had 1.4 kilowatt hours from the battery today. The rest has been to the battery, 9.2 kilowatt hours into the battery, and it wasn't empty this morning when I woke up, so that's why it's full. I hope this makes some sense to you. And that is, you can see there when I turn on the grid, that is, so power going into the battery, and then once the battery's full, the power goes into the grid. You can see that very clearly. Where it goes grey is where it's going into the grid. The other thing you can see from this is how much your daily usage is from the batteries and the solar panels. And today, it's 98% of the electricity that we've used in the house comes from solar and batteries. 19% from the Powerwall, 79% from solar. Yesterday, it was a very good day. It was 99%. 47 from solar and 52 from Powerwall. But if I look at the longer period, so a week, as you can see, it's now 54% is from the solar and Powerwall. And the remaining 46% is off-peak electricity being used at night to charge cars. And if I look at the month, it's a little bit better, it's 63%. And that, again, the remainder is the off-peak electricity to charge up the electric cars. So we're running 2 electric cars, a Tesla and a Nissan Leaf, so they consume quite a lot of electricity, but that's all off-peak electricity. And some of this power, some of that 63% has definitely gone into the cars as well. So it is a combination of the two things, but obviously in the first month I had it, I was really tight with charging the cars because I was obsessed, and I got it up to 84%. So I think a realistic appraisal of what it would do if you didn't have an electric car is in the kind of high 80% at this time of year, and probably in the low 70s in the winter. So that's the gist of it. The other great thing is I can do from here, look, I can switch to the car. So now in a moment, once that catches up, so it's charging, it's got 98 miles of range and it's charging at the moment, but only at 6 miles an hour. You can see it's very, very slow, 6 miles an hour. It's only 10 amps, so it's off a little 3-pin plug. And the reason I use that is because it just trickle charges it all the day, and I don't take anything from the grid. I know that there's enough in the battery and the solar to cover that. So I've put in, since we've had this system installed, I worked it out, it's about 320 miles of total range in the car from solar and battery. It's not bad, really. So let's meet Chris Jardine and find out more about the Powerwall. So I'm joined now by Chris Jardine from Joju Solar. It was Chris's company that put the new solar array on my roof and the new inverter and the Powerwall here. And it's fantastic to have you back, Chris. Thank you very much for finding time to come and explain things to me. So what we did this morning, which is maybe stupid, was say on Twitter, have you got any questions about the Powerwall? And we got some. Like about 900.
Well, let's see what we can do.
Yeah, let's see what we can do. But anyway, let's just quickly explain what it is. So there's solar panels on the roof of the building there. They come in, the power comes into this inverter.
That's correct.
And that is a new inverter, and that is because the old one I had was too small, was it?
That's right. So we upsized the size of your solar array, and that needed a larger inverter to cope with that additional power. And so that's turning the DC electricity from the panels into AC electricity, and that just lands in the fuse board as normal.
So at the moment, I know that the solar is producing quite a lot. We're not using much in the house. A lot is going into the battery. It's charging the battery at the moment.
Yep, that's correct. So the Tesla Powerwall is AC connected now, which means that the battery unit simply just wires into this consumer unit. So it's very, very simple to install, and it doesn't really interface or relate to the inverter in any way. The only additional piece that it has is this box here, which is called the gateway, and this is essentially what is controlling the battery, telling it when to charge, when to discharge.
Right. Because that is one thing that I think by the time it was installed, I did know, because we spoke at the original the Powerwall 1 installation. You know, do the lights flicker when it switches between the two? They don't.
No, it's completely seamless.
Yeah. This battery is 13.4, is it, kilowatt hours?
Yep, so it's 13.4 kilowatt hours, so that's a lot of storage capacity.
Yeah.
That's pretty much double the other models that are on the market, so that's really the key differentiator of the Tesla Powerwall 2 is that it has got this
huge
it's
capacity.
just a big unit. That's useful, but obviously you need the rest of the system to match up with that to ensure that you're actually using all of that capacity on a regular basis. Otherwise it's just sitting there idle.
Right. But let me just go through some of the questions. I mean, some of them I know. So it says, when charging a car, does it use power from the battery first or solar then battery?
Yeah, so that's
so many answers to that.
There's quite a lot of answers to that,
Yeah.
but it really depends on how you charge your car. But the way that the system was set up was that you generate from the solar during the day, that fills up the Powerwall, and then when the sun goes down in the evening, the Powerwall then discharges to the loads within your house.
Yeah.
So you're running your house off the solar energy stored in the battery. Come midnight, the cars start to charge, and we empty the battery essentially into the electric vehicles, so that the battery is empty the next morning, ready to go through another cycle. And that means that we're fully utilising the capacity of that battery.
Right.
Now, thermodynamically, that might seem a little bit odd that you're charging a battery and then discharging it into your car battery.
Yeah.
But from an economic point of view, that's the best way of doing things, because you're using your solar electricity, first of all, to offset your comparatively expensive grid electricity that's feeding your house. You're then putting the remainder of your free electricity into your car, and then if you need to top up your car to get it full again, you can use the nighttime Economy 7 cheap tariff to get your cars fully full, and you can repeat that cycle.
So that's certainly, I mean, that's definitely what I've done. And what's been interesting is the days when I haven't done that, because the cars are full or I haven't used them, we're always at 99% just from solar and battery in the house. You know, we've never, and then if I charge the car, it goes down to sort of 80%. So there's that little chunk that is the nighttime use of grid power. Another question that a lot of people asked was, can you charge this from during the night, say using off-peak electricity, so that, for instance, in the winter?
So that will be a possibility. That functionality doesn't exist at the moment, but we understand that it's in Tesla's pipeline to do that kind of upgrade, and it should just be a simple case of updating the firmware on this control box to allow that kind of functionality to happen. In winter, you might struggle to get this full because it's just dark in UK winters, and so you might be able to sort of half fill this with cheap nighttime electricity and then top it up with the solar generation during the winter. So you might have a sort of winter operating regime that uses a mix of solar and cheap nighttime electricity, and we think that functionality is coming. When that functionality does come, of course, it opens up the possibility that you could use these battery systems without solar, which would enable anyone to have one, and they could then, essentially be buying at the cheapest times that they can find a tariff and using that electricity when they want them.
That's the one thing I know for sure so far since we've had it, is we've not used any grid electricity during the peak time, not once, never. So between, say, 4 in the afternoon and 8 at night, the battery has run the house every single day, even on the most miserable, grim, raining, sunny,
the grid operators
days,
and the power companies are going to love that, because
it makes
if the peak is lower, that means less power stations are required in order to meet that peak. So that's good all round.
Oh yeah. So what about the feed-in tariff? So you get a feed-in tariff if you just have solar. You get a feed-in tariff for all the electricity you produce. Does having the battery change that in any way?
Tesla Powerwall is AC coupled, so it simply comes off of this fuse box. So it's sitting sort of beyond load side of the generation meter. So The generation meter that you get your feed-in tariff payments from is sitting between the inverter and this fuse box, and then you go into the Powerwall after that.
So in a sense, this is your house, and that's what the grid reads. Is that one?
That's correct.
Right. Huge amount of people have asked how much they cost. So this cost around £5,000 for this.
Yep. So the unit themselves costs around about £5,000, obviously, plus installation and VAT. It's worth explaining the VAT situation in a little bit more detail. Solar PV systems are eligible for 5% VAT, and if you install a battery alongside a PV system, then you'll pay 5% VAT on the battery.
Right.
If you're getting a battery retrofitted...
So you've already got solar panels, but you're just joining the battery on.
Yep, and if you're just joining the battery on and at a later date, retrofitting the battery onto an existing system, then unfortunately you pay VAT at 20%.
Right. But the other thing that I was fascinated by is the cost per kilowatt hour of the batteries in this. So this is 13.4 kilowatt hours. There's other batteries we're going to be looking at on Fully Charged soon, Sonnen in particular, but all their costs per kilowatt hour, considering all this is somewhere around $325, $340 US dollars a kilowatt hour, and the other ones are between $900 and $1,000 a kilowatt hour, which is really quite extraordinary.
So the units themselves are sort of comparable in price to other units on the market, but obviously it's got this greater capacity. Yeah. So per unit of storage, per kilowatt hour that it can store, this is the market leader in terms of that price. Obviously that's only useful if you can fully utilise all of that storage. Yeah. So we like to sort of think of a battery as a sort of bathtub analogy, where the battery is the bathtub, your solar generation is the taps that are filling it up, strongly in summer, dribbling in winter.
Yes.
And then there's the plug hole as well. The size of the plug hole that is the amount of electricity that these units can discharge. The other sort of defining characteristic is that it can actually output more power than other batteries on the market. Right. So this can discharge 5 kilowatts of power into the property, whereas most other units would probably only be around 2 kilowatts of power.
Right.
What that means is, if you're running a 3 kilowatt kettle, your Powerwall is going to cover that 100%. That's why you're seeing such high usage of solar electricity in your house, is that this has actually got the power output to cover all of that. Right. I think the only things that it wouldn't cover would be very high powered appliances like an electric shower.
Quite a lot of people asked about what the return time on investment would be, which I think is hard to tell yet, because I can't tell yet because I don't know, I haven't had enough electricity bills for long enough. I've noticed an over £100 a month drop in or about £120 a month drop in my electricity bill. But then I'm quite a high user because of having 2 electric cars. But I don't, have you done any estimates of what?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's certainly something we've had a look at. It's very difficult to say what the exact payback will be because it depends on the utilisation of the battery and how much you can sort of fully discharge and fully charge up again on any given day. I think if you look at costs of batteries, they're still a comparatively expensive piece of kit, and the economics of them is, of the order of the lifetime of the battery itself. Right. What we're seeing is that when it's put in conjunction with solar, it is probably marginally increasing the payback period.
Right. If you're putting solar and the battery.
Solar and the battery compared to just solar, it probably puts another couple of years on the payback period there. If you're retrofitting a battery back to an existing system, obviously you're paying the 20% VAT, and that picture looks worse. So if you're looking at batteries as a purely economic thing to do, as a way of making money, then I don't think we're quite in that ballpark yet. Give it a couple of years. The battery costs came down by 40% last year. So
really, in 1 year,
So the learning curve on these, the way that they're getting cheaper and cheaper, that is coming, and I think batteries will soon be an economic thing to do. Yeah. That is, of course, with the current policy environment, and I think we're seeing recent government announcements looking at introducing novel tariffs
Right.
that might support storage. So you might be able to buy electricity in from the grid when it's cheap and sell it back
Right.
when they really need it and get paid handsomely for it. So there may be things in the pipeline that will improve the economics of current battery systems. We're seeing people that are saying, I've got this solar system, but I'm out all day.
Yeah.
I never get to use my solar generated electricity. If I get a battery, then I can know that I'm using that energy, that electricity that I generated myself.
I mean, that is one of the questions, which I've experienced, because we had a power cut here only a week after we first had it installed, and currently it won't run the house when there's a power cut.
That's correct.
But is that something you can see that will eventually?
That will
be
come,
possible?
and we know from Tesla that they're looking to have that kind of backup capability. Right. What the unit will do at the moment is it's essentially monitoring the amount of electricity coming into your house and out of your house at your front door, and it's trying to set that to 0.
Right.
Now, that's got its own control box that does that, and that seems to operate quite well. But in order to satisfy the grid people, that has to work absolutely faultlessly.
Right.
In the event of a power cut, there'll be people outside working on the lines.
Right, and they don't want to get.
And so you have to be absolutely certain that they don't get zapped.
So in a sense, that if there's a power cut, this system needs to be isolated from the grid.
Yeah.
And that at the moment that isn't possible.
Yeah, that's not possible at the moment, but I think that will come. We're seeing the demand for that kind of functionality for it to act as backup power in the event of a power cut. I think it is worth reminding people that in the UK there's an average of about 2 minutes of power cut per year per person.
Because even here, we used to get them all the time when we first lived here many years ago, because the local grid was probably a bit dicky because it was very old, and they've clearly done something, because we don't get them, and that was the first one we've had for probably 5 years. It was so weird that it happened so soon after we had this installed. So it is very rare now.
It's very rare. It's very reliable. So purchasing a battery system at £5,000 of expense
just to cover
just to
you
ride
for
through those couple of minutes may not be an entirely sensible thing to do.
No, that is very true. Do you need spare capacity on your consumer unit brackets fuse box to fit it? I'm not sure whether is it going to break if it's hit with a football. It is quite solid.
It's quite solid. So the football question, I think
right.
it would survive a football, but don't get in the habit of it. I would say. In terms of the consumer unit, we can actually see this here. So we've got one fuse here that's connecting.
And that was already here.
Wall.
That's old.
And we've got one here that connects down to the gateway, which is the control box. So you need 2 spare slots in your consumer unit to attach that directly. Otherwise, it will need a new consumer unit, a little mini one added on the side.
But in terms of expense and fitting, it's not that's not a massive deal, is it?
Yeah, I mean, we were here, 4 hours fitting this when we were here with you. So
it was all very quick.
It was certainly a simple thing to put in.
And these can go outside. They could be outside the house.
They can go inside or outside, and they can go floor mounted like this is, or they can be mounted on the wall.
Yeah. I mean, this is joined to the wall, just in case you're thinking it might fall. I'm not leaning on it to stop it falling over. It's joined on.
Yeah, these are 120 kilograms. These units, so don't want that toppling over, particularly if you've got a nice Tesla Model S.
That would be
parked
bad.
next to it. That wouldn't be great. So this is actually
would be very ironic. Someone asked how long it would take to say it was empty at midnight. How long it would take to charge on Economy 7, and I just worked it out from what it takes to charge a car. And it's a 13 and a bit kilowatt hour battery. I reckon a couple of hours, wouldn't it? But it really depends on what it can pull from the grid. So I would imagine 5 kilowatts is what it can take from the solar. So
yeah, it's taking 5 kilowatts from solar. So I think it'll be full in like you say, in a couple of hours.
It'll be a couple of hours. Yeah, and it would cost 13 times 5 pence. I can't do that maths. That's quite complicated. So it costs 65p to charge it at night. So someone's asked, because I've seen pictures of it, I know it's possible, could you get more than one of these? And would it make sense to have a row of 4 if you just had a bottomless budget? I can't really tell. At the moment, this is doing everything that I need it to do.
That's right. So yes, you can daisy chain these together and run a fleet of batteries, and that's the sort of applications that we might see in a more commercial setting, for example,
or a hotel or something like that.
Something like that. So we can connect more than one together. Is it sensible for a household to do that? Again, it's about It's about getting the balance right. So we've used this bathtub analogy of the taps, the bathtub, and the
drain,
plug hole. This is a big bathtub already. You could daisy chain them together, get a massive bathtub. But if you're only dribbling in a little bit of solar electricity, then they're never going to fill up. And if the loads aren't there,
you're never going to drain it.
Then you're never going to drain it. So that's where I suppose our skill as system designers comes in terms of getting the balance right. Between what's being generated, what you need to store, and what's being discharged. And I think that's why your system is working so well. It's because it's got a beefed up larger solar array, feeding a large battery, feeding a large load, because of the cars, not because you're profligate in your nighttime electricity consumption. That all matches. So that kind of system would work well.
Last one is how long it'll last.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll be working on the basis of around about 10 years for a unit like this, but it may well be the case that they last longer, and the performance will degrade, over that time. So,
But if after 10 years it's only storing 10 kilowatt hours, do you know what I mean? You've lost, and that's quite a big percentage loss of its total capacity. 10 kilowatt hours is still a lot,
of,
isn't it? I mean,
I
mean, I think that's the thing, is that they don't just die, like the whole thing just goes to a certain point and then just stops. It basically loses capacity over that period.
Yeah, and I think this is a new technology, new application for that technology. So we don't really know what that degradation over time looks like. Certainly if it maps solar PV, where solar PV is expected to last 25 years, but we could easily see that out to 30, 40, 50 years. It may well be that batteries are similar.
But that's brilliant, Chris. Thank you so much. I mean, I can honestly say I'm a very happy customer. It's fantastic. It's done more than you can't really imagine what it's going to do until you've got one. It's difficult to see how it will affect the way you charge things and run your house. It's definitely made such a big difference. It's absolutely extraordinary, and you've done a brilliant job. I can say that with all honesty. I paid for it. I'm not being paid to say it, but it was really, a very painless operation having it put in, and it's been a real success. I must quickly ask, because you would put in other people's batteries. You're not just doing Tesla batteries. I mean, that's
so we consider ourselves technology agnostic, and we will install any kind of battery that we think is a technically good option, and we would consider that on a case by case basis. Again, trying to match the taps to the bathtub to the plug hole. That said, because the Tesla's unit price is cheaper than its competitors, then
it's kind of in the lead in the market at the moment.
It kind of becomes a viable option.
Well, that's all we got time for. Thank you very much for watching. I'm just obviously obsessively checking my app at the moment. I'm getting 3.7 kilowatts of solar from the old panels. Marvellous. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe to Fully Charged, and also have a look at the little Patreon link beneath this video. And as always, if you have been, thank you for watching.